Good morning, everybody from the Museum of Native American History. I'm Charlotte Buchanan Yale. I'm the director of the museum. Absolutely my honor to introduce today's program with our good friend and just incredible ally, Mr. Mark Ford, who also is part of this extraordinary nonprofit partnership with Native Americans. This has been a series that started with our cultural celebration last October. It's our signature event, the Native American Cultural Celebration. And the series was so popular, we decided to bring it into 2021. And I hope you enjoy it. I don't want to take up very much time, but because it goes by so fast. I'll see you at the end of the presentation with, again, it's my honor to introduce Mark Ford and Animal Medicine Experiences.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I appreciate that. Good morning or good afternoon, I guess, depending on what part of the country we're in. I'm so honored to be with you all today, and we welcome back those who maybe joined us last month or in October, and we welcome those who are here for the first time. I'm going to do a little overview of the original presentation, just to share with those newcomers a little bit about animal medicine ways through a Native American perspective. First of all, Dagota, Chi, Mark Ford, Gonse. I just greeted you in Apache, Western Apache language. I'd like to do an acknowledgement of land. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and this was the land that originally belonged to the Hohokam people, the early native indigenous people of this area of Arizona, followed by the Pima and the Tohono O'odham, who were all the tribes that moved into the Valley of the Sun, the Phoenix area. And we have 22 tribes here in Arizona, and just honored to be here to serve them in any way that we can. I'm with Partnership with Native Americans. We're a nonprofit organization that serves in the 9-state region, helping tribes with needs. So I'm very honored to be with you today. I also ask you to honor the indigenous people who lived in the lands that you come from or where you're living at this time as well. I'm now going to share my screen, my slideshow presentation. I'll do a few slides just to help people refresh for those who've been back, and also for those who are new, just have a little understanding of what we're doing here today. We call the presentation Animal Medicine Ways. And this is kind of a native perspective of looking at animals and how we relate to them and the messages or medicine that they bring us. So what is animal medicine? Well, the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is medicine? And, you know, most of us get our medicine from the pharmacy. And it's not about the medicines that go into our body to heal our bodies or to strengthen them. It's a deeper meaning than that. It's an understanding that medicine is about the holistic approach of who we are. So it's about the spiritual medicine that helps us physically, psychologically, emotionally, and it helps us to be who we are called to be. So that understanding of medicine is beyond just those supplements that we take or those things that we buy at the pharmacy to make us feel good when we're not feeling well. For Indigenous people, all creatures are viewed as sacred. There's certain animals that appear in stories and legends, whether it's the beginning of creation or how animals interact with humans or how things came to be. So animals are very sacred, and animals communicate with human beings. They deliver messages. They provide us physical, mental, and spiritual healing and medicine. It is a way of life and belief system that connects us with the Creator. It's understanding that we're all relatives. Whether we're two-legged or four-legged or have wings or feathers or scales, that we're all connected in some way. What's important for me to share is that is what animal medicine is not. It's not the worship of animals. It's not anthropomorphism where we project human qualities onto animals. So even though in some of the legends and myths, there's a lot of those that take place where the animals can speak and animals, you know, are able to do things that are human-like. That is not really what animal medicine is. And it's not cultural appropriation. So cultural appropriation is, you know, For Halloween, people dress up as Native Americans with the feathers and regalia like that. So it's not taking a culture and stealing from it without purpose. There are some understandings of animal medicine that are incorporated with Celtic traditions or Germanic traditions or Asian traditions that are very valid. And some of those incorporate some Native Americans. There's a lot of New Age spirituality. There's a lot of other understandings of, using tarot cards with animals and stuff. And as long as they're respectful to the Native traditions and culture, they're okay. But that's not what we're doing here today. There's been traditions among Native Americans about honoring animals. It's storytelling and ceremonies. And, every part of an animal was used for clothing, for if they were, the meat or the bones weren't used for food or even physical medicine. It was used to honor the animals in other ways. Animals were also part of the rituals of Native Americans. So whether there was a hunting ceremony or after a hunting ceremony, sometimes tribes honor the eagle or the deer or different types of animals that have significance to them. And each tribes have their own tradition. Each tribal community, they have their own tradition within a tribe. But the basic thing, though, is animals are sacred and they are honored among all indigenous peoples through the Americas. Just a little understanding about animal medicine and how it works. Animal medicine comes to us when we need it the most. So an animal will appear or present itself and deliver a message or deliver that medicine when we need it. So sometimes we are hoping for some kind of sign from the Creator to give us an answer, and other times they just pop up and surprise us. Animals communicate vocally, behaviorally, and they may speak out to us. They, through their actions or interactions with us, can really help us understand what's going on and help deliver that message or that medicine to us. They can come to us in our dreams, both our night dreams and our day dreams. There's a lot of people who think of animals. It's an understanding of animals that come to us in our dreams, whether we have a relationship with the animal or an animal that we've never had a relationship, well, it just appears to us in our dreams. So it's important to pay attention to those. Animals that speak with are ones that we may be drawn to. They may be the ones that we're repulsed by. So maybe they come in a nightmare form, or they are ones that we've never thought about before. So I'm going to explain, Native Americans don't categorize animal medicine the way I'm going to do that, but it just helps us to understand, because in our Western logistic minds, to have categories, to have a better understanding. So this is more of an explanation to help people who really have never experienced animal medicine before. So there's three types that I would categorize animal medicine. One is the affirming animal medicine. These are the animals that we have an attraction to or an affinity towards. So it's like when I go to the zoo, what's the first animal I want to go see? Is it the apes or the monkeys or the elephants, or what is it that I want to go see? What am I drawn to? They have qualities or abilities or attributes that we admire or we are drawn to. They're relatives that come into our lives, and sometimes they stay with us our whole life. There are people who have that animal medicine with them. So for me, the owl is my lifelong animal medicine who speaks to me and comes to me when I need it the most. They bring a positive message. They bring medicine which accentuates our strengths and our skills and enriches our spirit. So I would call those the affirming animal medicines, those that really we're drawn to and we feel excited to see and that we really are attracted to. Then we have those repulsive or frightening animal medicines. So these are the ones that we fear or repulsed by, the ones in horror movies that get us the chills down our spine. They have the qualities or attributes or characteristics that we dislike, that maybe we're disgusted by or that we are fearful of. There are powerful shadow animal medicines that help us address the issues that we have a difficult time with, or things that are unresolved in our lives, whether it's with relationships or other issues that we have that we carry on our shoulders. They can teach us new skills, and they have very powerful medicine to help us overcome life's obstacles. And then the third type of animal medicine that exists are those that just pop into our life, deliver a message, and leave. And these can be both those that are repulsed by, or those that are affirming, or just an animal, like I said, we never even thought about before. It delivers a message that is simple, or maybe one that's one of a warning, or an affirmation, confirmation, a challenge, or an invitation to change something in our life. They can show up very subtly, or they could be very dramatic. The other thing I want to mention is that it doesn't mean that when we go outside, every animal we encounter has a medicine or a message for us. So it's important to realize that animals will come into our lives whether they're bringing a message or medicine or not. But there will be some that are going to stay with you, and those are the ones that we need to pay attention to. So if it's an animal that's acting unusual, or maybe we've been contemplating something that's been bothering us, or something we've been celebrating, and they pop in, they could be delivering a message. But not all animal encounters or experiences have deep meaning or medicine. So what this session is going to continue with is, we have two people who have volunteered to share a personal experience or an encounter with an animal where they received medicine or a message, and they're going to share that experience with you. So the first person who's going to share is Annette. And Annette, if you would like to introduce yourself a little bit, just tell who you are, if you want, what you do, and then where you're located.
My name's Annette Conlau, and I'm a traditional naturopath. I live in a northern suburb of Chicago, Illinois. And I feel badly because I don't know the names of the nations that lived here before me. I'm sure it was the Illini and maybe Potawatomi, but I'm not sure about that. So,
thank you, Annette. So, Annette, tell us what time of the year, if you have a date, or maybe even the time of the day that you had your experience.
It was early spring, I would say March or April, and it happened, I would say, late morning.
Okay.
Maybe around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning.
And this was at your home?
And then it was at my home, and it started at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, but the whole experience lasted throughout that day and to a certain degree to the next morning.
Okay, great. And you want to share with us the animal who came to you?
Yeah, it was, so if it's okay, a little bit of background. I had been very, very sick for about 2 weeks with some kind of virus that was really debilitating. I could hardly move. I wasn't able to eat. And I'd been laying on the couch for a couple weeks. And it was the first day that I felt that I could get up and move around without passing out. And I walked into the kitchen and looked out the back door, and there was this possum. I'm going to say an old possum because it was had a lot of white hair, and it was right at the door. And when I opened the door, it started to walk into the house. I mean, it didn't go in because I wasn't going to let it in, but I closed the door. And yeah, so should I continue with the whole experience?
Yes,
okay. Yeah, so we had left a carton on the deck that had apples in it. There was no apples in it at that point. But I thought, okay, so maybe it was hungry looking for food. And I thought, gee, that's strange. Possums don't usually show up in the middle of the day. Maybe it's dying, has rabies, whatever. So I felt bad for it because it looked old and debilitated. And I thought, well, maybe it's just hungry. It needs something in its last days. So I waited for it to leave the door area. And then I got an apple from the refrigerator and threw it out into the yard. And then maybe an hour or two later, the UPS man came to make a delivery. And he came to the back door And I looked outside and he said, "Ma'am," he says, "you have a possum on your fence." He said, "That is so strange in the middle of the day." And I said, "I know, isn't that weird?" And the possum was on top of this fence, just sunning itself. And I thought, well, that's really, really strange. So I called my husband and I said, "There's a possum in our driveway area. I think it's dying. Be careful when you drive in that you don't run it over because it may be laying there." And so then it hung around. It stayed up on the fence like for hours, and was still there when Norman came home. And I thought, okay, became nightfall, and I said, it's probably going to die. I would imagine we're going to see it next to the garage in the morning. And the next morning I got up and looked out. There was no possum, and the apple was gone.
Wow. That's a very, very powerful story. You mentioned that the possum, you felt like it was older, or it was, maybe even dying. Could you sense if it was male or female?
My gut feeling is male.
Okay. That's great. And then you mentioned that you had been sick for a while. Did you pick up any understanding of what this meant to you? This appearance of the possum who came to visit and almost entered your home, literally.
Well, it felt, the initial feeling was, it was shocking. And I thought, oh, wow, this is something powerful is happening. And I thought, well, maybe, possums like to play dead. So maybe my body or my soul was playing dead. And because the thought had gone through my head when I was in that illness, am I dying? Is this the end? And so I thought, well, maybe I'm pretending to die and I'm not really dying.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting that your presumption of your perception of the possum was one that was old and dying. And yet he wasn't there in the morning, and he ate the food you left, and he was out sunning. But that's usually strange because possums are nocturnal for the most part. So it is rare to see one, and one who wants to come into your home. Very interesting. So any other details that you can think about or you want to share?
That's all that comes to mind right now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And what I'm going to do now to let everyone know is I did a little bit of research just about the possum itself, some scientific or just, understandings of the animal itself, and then also a Native American perspective, how Native Americans saw possums in this continent. So here's some interesting facts about the possum that maybe a lot of people don't know about. They're the oldest mammals in North America. They have been found to have existed through the Cretaceous period, which was the time that the dinosaurs were still here on this continent. They are only found in the Americas, so North, Central, and South America. And what's interesting is that, so it was difficult to find anything about the possum with other cultures and other countries or other faith traditions. So it's only found in the Americas. There is an animal called a possum in Australia, but it is not related to the possum here in the Americas. It is more related to like a lemur, and it looks like a lemur more than it does our rat-looking possum here that you see in the picture with her babies. And it's interesting, we spell possum with an O, even though the O is pretty much silent. But the Australians also use the possum to describe the marsupial that lives in our country. So they are a marsupial, meaning that they also have the little pouch, much like a kangaroo carries their babies until they reach a certain age. Usually it's about a month that the baby possum then are grown up to where they're out of the pouch. So here's a couple things that may be interesting, especially to you, Annette. Playing possum is a trick that people know about, but it's not really a trick. There is actually a medical condition that happens when they are sufficiently traumatized, either through a predator appearing or, a car almost hitting them. They actually go into shock where their body systems shut down so effectively that they appear to be dead. And this is an involuntary reaction and programmed into their behavioral traits. This gives them a defense system to survive in a hostile world. And maybe that's one reason why they've been around since the dinosaurs. When they appear to be dead, they excrete this musky scent that other animals can pick up on that either show that they're sick or rabid or have been dead a while, like they've been rotting away, which makes the predators not want to eat them and walk away from them. And they sometimes emit a drool or foam that forms around the mouth, again, to portray sickness, like they're rabid. Here's a very interesting thing, too, about the possums that maybe explain why they've been around since the dinosaur days, that they're immune to rabies, to rattlesnake bites, and almost any other poisonous creature that may bite them. They have an incredible immune system and rarely ever get sick. Possums eat ticks and other insects that bite or carry disease. So they're not only immune to have a strong immune system within their own bodies, but they help other animals who are vulnerable to biting or catching diseases by eating these disease-carrying vermin. They're nocturnal, as I mentioned. I did mention they're marsupials. Possums are probably one of the most understood animals because of their physical appearance. They look like big rats. They have that long, narrow, tapered snout and jaws with 50 teeth in them. So when encountered, a possum that is startled will open its mouth and expose the teeth and growl to warn potential threats and predators. But this is actual bluff because their real way of interacting when threatened is to seem dead. So they're they're sometimes depicted as aggressive or repulsive, but really it's just a way to deflect any predators, including human beings. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of Native American understanding. So the word possum actually is an Algonquin word meaning white beast. And obviously probably because they're not attractive, so it's not like white beautiful beast, just white beast. There's some Native American lore about possums that depict the creature as a trickster or a clown, much like the coyote is in some tribes, who plays dead to get out of danger. Among the Mexican tribes or Mexican indigenous groups, women carry possum charms to ensure safe birth because they're seen as a maternal, they bring maternal medicine to expectant mothers. The tail sometimes was used to enhance fertility in women. And like many other trickster spirits, some Native American myths say that possum brings the element of fire to humankind. Just again, like some tribes, especially here in the Southwest, see coyotes bringing fire to human beings. For warriors, using animal medicine from the possum was used where they would play dead when in battle and letting the enemy pass them by, and they would jump up from behind to attack the enemy and defeat them. So the opossum teaches those native people to be strategic in order to survive and to overcome the enemy. So those are some just basic Native American perspective of the possum, and then some of the scientific understanding of possum. Was there anything else that hit a chord with you? Or I just found it, especially around its immune system, being able to survive any bites, being able to also eat things that cause disease or cause poison or infection. So to me, that kind of stood out when I was looking through some of these scientific things.
Yeah, there was a few things that jumped out at me that I hadn't thought of for sure. First of all, the fact that it's such an old animal, that it's been around so long, made the message seem even more powerful. And the fact that, you said that that it's so resistant to disease, that was like more of the message to me that, like, you're stronger than you think. And also, it made me feel like something about that experience was going to be helpful for other people.
Mm. Definitely. Definitely. That's really cool. And it's ancient medicine. I mean, if it's the longest living, well, I should say longest living, but it has been around since the dinosaur period, it's the oldest mammal, that really, it's old medicine or ancient medicine, which is very powerful medicine, at least through a native perspective. So I think it sounds like the possum came to you when you felt like you were going to die and that you were feeling so sick, and maybe giving you that hope that your immune system is stronger than you think, and that maybe there is some powerful medicine there that, it was asking you to draw from. It was coming inside your home to bring it to you, to deliver it. So I don't know.
Thank you. That was really cool. It deepened the message, and I realized this morning that, so it was interesting when you first asked if I could step in and tell this story today. At first I thought, well, I know I've had lots of experiences. I can't think of any right now. And then that popped into my mind, and I'm thinking, it probably came into my mind for a reason. Like, that message was not just for that one incident. That message is supposed to feed me for a long period of time. That it needed to come back to be I needed to be reminded of it today.
That's very cool. There's someone who made a comment in the chat room, and they said, this is from Kristen, it makes me wonder whether your system shut down like a possum's does in face of something deep and confronting and perhaps frightening, curious about the timing of your illness. Very cool. So maybe the healing aspect of the possum system, as well as the timing of his appearance as you healed, was, it's just very fascinating. So,
yeah, that's a good point. Definitely. I think that probably could be very true. And that kind of did cross my mind also. Yeah, that perhaps that illness, I don't think illnesses come out of the blue. There was probably something that was purging out of my system on a spiritual level, and coming through in a physical way. And the possum is probably, flagging that for me and saying, that was something deeper than you realize.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing, Annette. That was very powerful. And for everyone, the animal medicine or experiences that we have, encounters, they bring us medicine when it actually happens. But when we retell the story and learn something new about the animal, that medicine comes back. That message comes back and maybe stays with us in a different way, or speaks to us in a different way, and helps us looking back, to that experience. But like Annette said, it also is something that can be shared, that other people maybe who are listening on here can relate to, or maybe it's a message or medicine they need right now in their lives. For any of us who've had COVID and gone through that, or have it right now, or having other, physical or ailments going on, health issues, this could be a message that the possum is bringing, or the medicine the possum is bringing to you as well. So Thanks again, Annette. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mark. That was wonderful. Thank you.
And we have another person who's going to share their experience. Lisa, I invite you to unmute and maybe share a little bit who you are, your name, what you do, and where you're located.
So I live in Xenia, Ohio, which you may know is the birthplace of Tecumseh. So the Shawnee Indians, Hopewell Indians, Miami Indians are all here. There's several tribes, but I think those are probably the main three. And I'm an executive assistant for a science and technology research firm, but my heart lies with Native American culture and spirituality and animals, and I do Reiki.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Do you want to share with us a little about your experience? Maybe tell us the animal you encountered, and then also like what time of the year, or what date, or time of the day that you experienced it.
So this was last November, towards the end of the month, and I had been missing my sister. She passed away over 20 years ago from cancer, and it was in December. So that time of year, I always it's in the back of my mind, or I start feeling a little down. And I also lost a friend last year to cancer, and an uncle and some other people. And so I was a little sad thinking about Christmas coming up and not having them there with me. And the next day I came down here to my home office, since I've been working mostly virtually. And there's a window right here, as you can probably see. And I was working, all of a sudden I heard a tap, tap, tap on my window. And I turned and looked, and there was a female cardinal who was flying away from the window. And I knew it was something significant, but it wasn't like she flew into the window and went, oops, there's some glass. She was tapping, and then she flew away. So I jumped up and looked, and then I saw who was her mate, this big, beautiful red cardinal sitting on the fence. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, my sister and my friends and family are letting me know that they're here with me, and they're saying hi and encouraging me not to be sad.
Wow, that's very powerful. To actually tap on your window, getting your attention, is a very powerful way that sometimes animals present themselves to us. Did you have an understanding of what a cardinal had meant to you before this experience?
Yes, I had heard, I don't know how long ago, that a lot of times when a cardinal showed up, it was representing somebody who had passed on.
Wow. So you felt that was the message that was being brought to you, that someone, your sister, your friend who passed on, that they were present, especially when you had been feeling like you've been missing them and thinking about them.
Yes. Yeah, my sister has shown up for me in a whole lot of ways, but that one was very significant.
Wow. And the fact there was a female and then a male, both present.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because I did do some research on the cardinal as well that I'm going to share with everyone, share with you especially, which it may help, again, fill in kind of the deeper understanding of the message or the medicine that you received at that time, and maybe help relive it, bring maybe that medicine to others who need to hear it. So I'm going to share my screen now. So it's interesting because, again, like Annette with the possum, the cardinals are only found in North, Central, and South America. So it was almost impossible to find anything in Europe or Asia about the cardinal. And so here's some interesting facts, what I discovered about the cardinal. Cardinals are the first bird that visit feeders when we put out bird feeders. They're earlier in the morning, they're first to visit, and then the very last in the evening. A lot of, I don't even know how they say it, the bird people, people who study birds.
Ornithologist.
Thank you so much. They're not sure why this is the case, but it may be related to it's a lower competition with other birds. And plus, because they're so bright and colorful, they may be vulnerable to predators. So having them like at dawn or dusk appear to eat is significant because they're less vulnerable. So it's probably a kind of a safety factor against predators. They're also the birds that only eat of a diet of seeds or grain. And so their beaks are very cone-shaped. The purpose is to crack open the hulls and shells on nuts and seeds. So during courtship, affection is expressed by the males feeding the females beak to beak. So it makes them look like they're kissing. So these two, especially Native Americans, these are seen as the birds that bring romance, affection, devotion to each other and to us, because they are very devoted in the way that they treat each other as a couple. In the winter months, cardinals, especially northern cardinals, they are not territorial. They stay put through the wintertime, where many birds are migratory, like geese and duck and others. They go south to warmer weathers. The cardinals stay in their same location throughout the winter and survive through the food and by taking care of each other. A lot of times they gather together as a flock rather than just a pair or as a single cardinal. They come together as a flock during the wintertime because they have better success of finding food. So it's kind of like they're hunting together in packs, but they're not called packs. There's different terms for these flocks of cardinals, which is interesting. They're called sometimes a college or a conclave, a deck, a radiance, or a Vatican of cardinals. And so they're non-migratory. And the reason why they're called cardinals, at least in English language, is because they look like the Catholic cardinals that wear the red and have the red mitres. So that's the reason why. And I guess that's probably why they're called a college or a conclave or a Vatican of cardinals. So another thing is that they're monogamous. So pairs stay together year round, much like eagles and some of the larger birds that are predators. So they're very monogamous, showing again that devotion and the example that they give to the native people who lived here. Once their eggs hatch, both male and female both take responsibility of feeding the babies, including the male helping raise the young. And so the female can again focus on incubating her eggs. It's interesting, unlike other species of songbirds, because they are songbirds, where only the male usually can sing, with the cardinals, both the male and female sing. And they're both known to sing when they're in the nest as a way of signaling to their mate to bring food. The males sing during courtship, and the females respond. Female cardinals express themselves with more elaborate songs than the males, which is interesting. Usually the males have more elaborate songs, but in this case, the cardinal females or the female cardinals have more of a beautiful, elaborate song. They can sing up to 2 different dozen tunes, depending on their location. And this is also very interesting. Cardinals have dialects that differ from different regions of the country, just like there's the Southern accent or the Texas drawl or the Eastern, the New York accent, a Brooklyn accent. So cardinals have accents as well, or dialects that are much like human beings. So, and they're only found in the Americas, as I mentioned. So here's some Native American understanding and significance of the cardinals. They believe that these graceful creatures have strong ties to ancestors, that cardinals are the messengers of the spirits, that they represent devotion, loving relationship, courtship, and monogamy. Some tribes thought the cardinals were the bringers of rain. Others, especially in the southeastern tribes, associate with good fortune and sunshine. When a cardinal mates, they mate for life. They have a harmonious, musical, and healthy relationship with their spouse. Both the female and male cardinals romantically sing duets to each other, and they do similar melodies for each other as well. The Choctaw tribe had, for natives, they were called redbirds. So not cardinals themselves, but they're redbirds because that's the color, especially the male is very bright red. They were matchmakers between the maiden and a young brave. And it was a cardinal who brought men and women together to be unified as husband and wife or mates or spouses. This is why the cardinals are associated with romance. And if you are single and you see a cardinal, it means romance is in your near future. At the same time, if you're in a relationship and a cardinal crosses your path, it is be a reminder to honor your partner and to remember the romance that you brought together in your relationship. There's a significance of 12 to some Native American tribes being a lucky number. They associated the redbirds with the number 12 because there's always usually, well, I should say always, but there's usually 12 eggs in a cardinal's nest. And because cardinals are year-round birds, I mean, they're not migratory, you can see them year-round, including the deep part of winter, that you see them all 12 months. So again, that significance of 12 is important. The cardinal can represent the blessings from the Creator. So if one crosses your path, you can expect those blessings to manifest within the next 12 hours, 12 days, midnight, or noon. So anything, again, around the number 12. And here's some Christian perspective. And again, it brings, so when the settlers came here, again, it was that belief that that they look like cardinals, the Catholic cardinals who, are the princes of the Catholic Church, they're called. So here's some understandings of a Christian perspective of cardinals. That cardinals have been a symbol of, it's a visitor from heaven. It's a symbol of the presence of light in the middle of darkness. They bring hope, especially in the coldest of winters. Some of the traditions talk about the meaning of the presence of the cardinal, which means that it's a spiritual messenger from God. That a red cardinal is representative of a departed loved ones attempting to contact us. When a red cardinal hits a window, it's a bad sign representing death. Fortunately, Lisa, yours tapped. It did not hit the window. The red cardinal represents the blood of Christ, symbolizing difficulties. It also represents that combating difficulties and with hope in God, that the red cardinal appears in times of stress and despair to encourage hope and persistence. So just a little bit of information I found out about the cardinal. So Lisa, anything that strikes a bell or anything that was said either about the facts about the cardinal or through the Christian or Native American perspectives that
Yes, the information was really interesting. A lot of the things you talked about I had not heard before, but when I was thinking about this, it struck me that I didn't just see the female cardinal or just see the male cardinal, but I saw them both together. And my sister and I were soulmates and best friends. And so that just really hit me that seeing both of them together, it was just powerful for me because we were always seen together growing up. One wasn't without the other. So that was just extremely impactful and very reassuring that she was definitely reaching out to me. And it was very humbling. It just made me feel extremely humbled and grateful to know that Creator cares enough about me, which I know He does, but to take the time to send that messenger to me was very humbling.
It's awesome. And your friend who died of cancer that you talked about, was it a man or a woman?
It was a woman.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make sense that the female would tap on your window rather than the male come tap.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
Yes.
strong relationship you had your sister and with your friend who both passed on. But the fact that they were a couple, and even though they weren't together at the same time, they were in each other's presence. So anyway, it was really interesting to learn some things about both the cardinal and the possum. And hopefully, the medicine has awakened again for you. The message has awakened, reminding you that your sister and your friend's spirit are still with you. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. Appreciate that very much. And I'd like to open it up now for anyone who would like to say something in the chat about this experience. I also want to invite people to submit their experience or their encounter that they would be willing to share at the next session, which is in April. I think it's April 9th. It's the second Friday of April. It'll be at noon, at 12 p.m. Central Time. So we're going to have another experience like this where people can share their own experience of animal medicine and animal encounter. And I know sometimes people are afraid to share these because it's so personal. It could be so, or people are just afraid of public speaking, sharing things like this in public. So we appreciate those who are willing to do that.
So Cheryl Lynn Herman chimed in the possum story that she loves opossums. She thinks of them as a gift when she sees them. She has a couple of resident opossums in her nearby woods. She loves their little pink feet.
That's awesome.
We've got a couple similar questions about when they interact with an animal experience. Is there a way of offering a gratitude to the animal world when they interact with us?
Oh, that's a great question. There's different ways you can do that. Sometimes just thanking them for appearing and making themselves known is a form of that. Another way of doing that would be, let's say if there was a cardinal, to maybe put some feed out in the bird feeder to thank them. Annette offered the apple to the possum, even though the possum ate the bucket of apples beforehand, helped himself to it, but offered that apple. So food would be an offering if it's something that would be appropriate. You don't want to do it where they become dependent upon you, but maybe offering something outside. And then also maybe, doing a little research more about kind of what I did with the cardinal and possum, looking them up. What are some facts about, little known facts? That's pretty much when I did a Google search, was like, what are little known facts about the possum or the cardinal? Looking those kind of things. Maybe having a picture or putting something, of them that, make it your screensaver on your computer or something like that for a day, just to kind of honor them. That would be a great way to honor and acknowledging the medicine or the message they brought.
Cheryl Lynn Herman chimed in again. Is it the same if a female cardinal hits your window? I feel sad to know that if one dies, the other one is alone. Do you know if they find a new mate? We have quite a few cardinals that live in our woods and visit our feeders in Virginia.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. That's one of those things I'd have to research and find out if they do look for a new mate after one passes. That's a great question. Or if they stayed widowed and single. I guess it depends maybe how young they are too. I'm not sure, but hopefully they would find another mate. But I'm not really sure.
Nicole Benedict chimes in. Thank you, Mark, for this great space to share and learn. I see owls often before a significant shift in my life. Seeing them always gives me a sense of calm before big changes coming my way.
Wow. Owls are very powerful medicine. There's some cultures that fear owls because they believe that they represent death or the warning of death of a loved one. But sometimes that death could also mean something we need to die to internally, maybe, kind of letting go of something that we've been holding on to, grief or anger or resentment or things like that. So it doesn't always mean physical death. But other cultures see owls as magical and spiritual. For a lot of Native American tribes, that understanding that taking on the owl is being able to see in the darkness because they have incredible perception. Their heads can turn almost completely around. So being able to see things all around, it helps us give a different view or a different angle of what we need to look at in our lives and what needs to change. So owls are very powerful. And if an owl has been coming into your life, it'd be good to do some of that. What are some interesting facts about owls? The other thing that's important in looking at the animals that come into our life, so there's different types of owls. You have the great horned owl, you have the white owl, the snowy owl, the barn owl. So what owl came to you? And to learn a little more, why is it different from other owls? Sometimes the color, and I asked both Annette and Lisa, like the gender of the owl or the animal that appears is important because it brings a different form of medicine. Whether it's male or female, there's a different understanding, whether it's young or old or, average age or middle age, I guess you would say with animals too, that also adds to the message when we learn the gender and also the age of the owl, because it enhances the message or the medicine we receive. Like the possum, that's ancient medicine because it's the oldest mammal in North America or been around the longest. The cardinal, the female cardinal speaking to Lisa rather than the male cardinal, even though the male cardinal was present, he was there to support the female energy that and the message that was being delivered. So it's important to pay attention to all those details. If there's something wrong with the animal, Annette, she thought maybe this one was the possum was sick or dying. So if we pick up that kind of energy from them, pay attention to all those details because it really does help enhance the the understanding of the medicine or the message we're receiving.
Great. Lucretia Gale says, owls seem to have an effect on my mental health. Is this common?
If you are open to animal medicine and owl medicine, then yes, it can happen. So hopefully it's good medicine that's happening, that the mental health is one that's affirming for you and helping you. So yeah, I think if we do, some people really get into it and go and dive deep into the understanding, but I think just understanding the basic message is great. But if a person wants to spend some really quality time, they can do that as well. One of the things I had shared about in the first presentation I did is looking at it through the perspective of different cultures or religions, faith traditions, because sometimes the way they see things helps us maybe understand the message a little bit differently. So, I'm coming through the Native American perspective, but today I brought some of the scientific facts of both of these animals, brought a little Christianity understanding or perspective with the cardinal. But if you want to look at other cultures with how they viewed that animal, that may help enrich that message as well. That takes you to a deeper dive of understanding of the animal. So I think we're coming towards the end of our time, but thank you all so much for participating, and especially our wonderful presenters today, Annette and Lisa, for sharing your experiences, and we appreciate that so much. And again, there's an opportunity if you would be interested. I have one person lined up for the next session in April, on April 9th, but if we have another one or two that we could share, that would be awesome.
This is always so magical, and it just reminds us, Mark, my dear friend, that there's always magic afoot. And also, this is so informative because it's almost like dreaming. You have to go inward what that means to you. Mark and I maybe you dream about the cardinal, I dream about the cardinal, but that has something completely unique to you. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of times you're sitting quietly with that thought, or even, I put things under my pillow and magically I have an aha moment when I wake up in the morning. But it's just so gratifying, to walk more consciously on this earth and, pay attention to all of our relations. And you're just such a treasure. I thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate that. And, just to let you know, my job here is not to interpret what the message is for you or the medicine is, because that needs to be done within yourself. But just to give a different perspectives, what maybe could enhance or help you understand and accept that message or medicine. So I think that's real important.
There's one more thing before we let you go, is that, again, Mark is with Partnership with Native Americans, an extraordinary nonprofit. Please look it up. I know that we honor them every year, hopefully with our cultural celebration, we get to see Mark in person. But when you go to our online gift shop, we do a percentage of our sales that go to their nonprofit. The other thing I always want to, shamelessly, post is that we really do invite you to travel through our website, sign up for our newsletter. It is going to start going bi-monthly because it's getting so lengthy with all the things we have going on, and we don't want you to miss a ding dang thing. And also, speaking of all of our relations, coming up next, tomorrow we have our monthly installment of Hear Our Voices with Indigenous storytellers. We have Cherokee treasure Chuji Kingfisher will be here at 11 o'clock with an introduction by the fabulous Gail Ross, who's the pinnacle of all storytellers. And then, speaking of all of our relations, we have on Thursday the fabulous Dan Wildcat from Haskell Indian Nation University. And our topic with him is going to go throughout our whole existence here at MONAH, indigenuity, where tradition meets innovation, but whether you're an urban planner, a landscape architect, a fashion designer, what is the return of investment that affects all of our relations, air, water, land, birds, animals, us. So I learn something new every day. One other thing that someone brought up about who lives on your land, to do a land acknowledgement, when we're getting ready to open April the 2nd. So that's exciting. But we always have had a computer here where you can type in your zip code and see who lived on that land before you. And there's many different websites that you can go to. I think there's one called openculture.com. Wherever you live on this planet, you can type that in and open up, learn more, be curious. So for all of us at the Museum of Native American History, my honor. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.